Let me refresh it. Okay, I'm seeing this here. I think. Yep, there it is. All right. All
What
right.
was that
Let's
fuzzy sound?
restart. I don't know. I'm not getting anything.
Hmm. It's done now. All right, we're good.
Okay. So here we go.
Just feeling
On
it.
this episode of the 520 Collective Podcast, as a Christian artist, what should you be willing to sacrifice for sync placement? Also, Nora Rahimian joins us to discuss the importance of a newsletter for building your brand. Let's go. All right. So there's a nice little opening. All right. Welcome to the 520 Collective Podcast. It's indie Christian culture. I'm your host, Eric Boston, with my co host, Zero for Hire. What's up, dude?
What's up, man? Broadcasting live from the Great Lakes State, where I'm prepared for the worst episode we're about to record.
The worst. That's a strong statement.
For
Like,
now,
you said that with a lot of confidence. I'm not
that's how you got to
sure
do
how to
it, man.
feel.
You just strut. You just step out there and let everybody know how it is when you first show up.
Well, I mean that's one way to do it. That's one way to do it. So, yeah, man, it's been a month. It's August now.
Yep.
Um, Getting ready for a new school year. So
Yeah.
there's that.
What do you mean by
Um,
getting
a lot of
ready?
stuff.
Are you going to school or taking new classes?
No, you guys
Finally
know
gonna
I'm a
get that
teacher,
degree that you were wanting to do?
dude. I got enough degrees. So, but yeah, man. No, teacher, all that good stuff. You got kids going back to school, I'm sure, or whatever.
Yeah.
Something, some kind of learning is
We're
happening for
rounding
all
up
of
our
our children.
homeschool stuff.
Yeah, yeah. So, but yeah, man, a lot of stuff's been happening around with 520 as well in the past month. Want to give a shout out. We got a couple of new writing team members at the platform, which is awesome. We brought Servant and DJ Expander onto the team, and both of their first pieces are up on the website. Servant did a cool dive into Zeta Blacksmith's new little collective. And then DJ Expander started a series called the Dive Series, where he's looking at some of his favorite Christian hip hop songs and exploring kind of the deeper meaning in them. So make sure you go to 520collective.com, check those out.
Okay.
And then for us, man,
Uh
for
oh,
us on the
hang on, hang on.
podcast. Uh oh.
What's wrong?
My guy Zero just left me, so I'm gonna just keep on talking for a minute, I guess. Live on YouTube because I'm watching that one. I'm not seeing the Twitter stream, but if you're on YouTube, let me know in the chat that you're here because I want to give you a shout out for listening to us. Um,
I'm back.
Zero's back. All right, man. So yeah, and then we also had some kind of cool stuff happen for us. For you and I here with the podcast. Uh, FeedSpot, who at the beginning of the year named us the number 3 podcast on their 20 best Christian hip hop podcasts of 2022. They actually updated their list mid year. And
Really?
I know you know this, but I want you to act shocked anyway, dude. We were named number 1. And that is a shocked face. I believe that.
Well,
I don't
I
know.
had
I
my
believe that a
soundboard
little
set
less
up
than
on
your
the Stream
conviction.
Deck, but it's not. I had to reset it, so I was gonna play the. I'll have it next time.
It's all right. It's all right, man. So,
Yeah. So
but yeah,
Streamlab
shout out to
or sorry
FeedSpots.
Streamlabs, no, FeedSpot. Jeez, I'm so sorry. Um, they offer a service where they kind of consolidate and aggregate the best of type feeds for people that are new to podcasting and new to the podcasting world, or maybe a little too busy to kind of comb through all of the different options. And so that it offers discoverability.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, FeedSpot. What's really cool about them is, it's kind of like a podcast database, right? You can go in there, you can type in their search the kind of podcast you're looking for, and it's going to give you a bunch of suggestions based on whatever terms you use. Like, hey, you might want to check out this podcast. So,
Yeah.
and then they do create these lists as well. So shout out to them, man.
It's like BuzzFeed for your ears.
Yeah, yeah, but yeah. Shout out to FeedSpot for just the recognition. You know, it's pretty cool. I like it.
We're gonna put that on our logo.
We'll do something, that's for sure. So, and then of course, you know, new music as well. Let me ask you, man, did you check out the new Lecrae video?
What? I have not.
That's okay. It's all right.
I had some personal stuff
I
going
watched
on
it.
this week, so I totally forgot about it. I'll do it over the
I
break
did
or
what?
something.
It's okay. I watched it. Most people who have been around for a minute know that I do not consider myself a Lecrae fan. I think he's fine. I think the song was fine. But yeah.
Was it like classic Lecrae or was it something else?
Dude, you're talking to the wrong person to ask
Okay,
about
so you
classic
just weren't a
Lecrae,
fan of
man.
Lecrae in general, like not
I've
even
never really.
I'm gonna open our
like,
chat and I don't see anybody in our chat. So
I respect what Lecrae has done for Christian hip hop. I can acknowledge his place in it. I mean, back when we did the CHH Mount Rushmore, I mean, I gave him a spot on there, you know, with no questions asked. But for me personally, I just
so you're not a fan of Fanatic, the song?
He's never really been it for me, man.
Fanatic. Like that's how I remembered how to spell Fanatic. You're not a fan
cool.
of Praying for You? I mean, with that big, you know,
dude,
surprise ending at the end of the song.
My favorite songs involving Lecrae are where he's been featured.
It turned out that he was praying for himself. He was the guy that he was praying for.
Oh.
It really got you at the end.
Very M. Night Shyamalan of him.
Did you like the yeah, I'm kind of reaching. I know you don't like Lecrae.
I get what you're doing there with that pun, man. You're reaching.
Oh boy. So Lecrae's got a new video,
but there was a lot,
and I didn't see it. And I should have seen it.
It doesn't
I'm
matter.
disappointed in myself for not seeing it yet.
I didn't actually want to talk about it. I just wanted to see how you would respond because we didn't talk about it beforehand.
I wish if you had asked me yesterday, then I would have been prepared. But
that was the whole point.
Yeah.
That was I keep trying to hit you with some unexpected stuff when we get on the podcast and just see what happens.
That's fine. That's
so.
Yeah, that should have been on my radar. I missed it. I am a Lecrae fan. Well, I'm a classic Lecrae fan. I don't know, like now, because it seems like he's doing that thing where rappers try to appeal to everybody. I don't like that. You know, like the cool thing about rap is like there are people that their music is not for, and then you get to be a part of that club if you like their music. You know what I mean? And these guys that just want to be everybody's best friend, it's like they're the most boring, and I don't know. Man.
Well, you know, again, I'm not the guy to ask, but he is getting ready to put out Church Clothes 4, so maybe you're excited about that. No, I don't know.
No.
Is Church Clothes like classic Lecrae for you?
I've been hurt before, and I don't know. I'm also going through. I'm going through this thing personally, like because it's weird with CHH is like I'm going through a spiritual thing where God is changing and transforming the way that I view things and the way that I approach the gospel, if that makes sense. Like I'm getting back to my roots, man. I've been watching Living Waters videos with Ray Comfort. He's the guy who converted Kirk Cameron. I was watching with somebody and she says, "Hey, is that the guy who ministers with Kirk Cameron?" I was like, "It's like the other way around." He's a very powerful preacher, and he has a very simple and concise way of presenting the gospel, and it's really gotten me back to my roots because there are things that should be a part of your gospel presentation. And I'm not saying that every song has to be the gospel, but none of the songs are the gospel anymore. They're not even like helpful or gospel adjacent most of the time. And so I don't need a long HD vision of the problem, and people have had their feelings hurt and church hurt and people are blah, blah, and I don't need to see the problem any more clearly than we already see it. Like what we need now is to just start applying the gospel as the solution. And so that's why I'm not excited for another church close. Like it's just going to be another presentation of how bad people's feelings are hurt by the church, or somebody misunderstood and now somebody deconstructed their faith because they're all butthurt, or I don't know. I don't it
Have
just
you
I
have
don't
you
like
ever
that.
considered have you ever considered deconstructing your Lecrae fandom?
I don't even know what that means.
I mean, you said you kind of been hurt before, so that's what hurt people do. They deconstruct the things that hurt them.
Only when it's like like atheists or Christians who want to be people just want to get off the hook. I'm not trying to get off the hook for not liking Lecrae anymore. I'll just say it. Like I'll take ownership. It's me. It's not him. It's me. I don't like him anymore. I don't like he. Yes, everyone changes, and I don't agree with what he's doing. I don't like him anymore. I want something different. So I'm not. I don't need to deconstruct because I don't need to not feel bad about it. Like I don't care how he feels.
Mm, okay. So I know, and I will eventually reel this back in and get back on track.
That's
Um,
fine.
but man, it what you're saying, man, really reminds me of the very like last statement that Jordan Peterson made in this video, a message to the Christian churches.
Oh, that's
I don't know
another
if you got a
banger
chance to
came
watch
out
that.
this week that I missed, and you did
Well, it
remind
came
me
out
of
like
it.
3 weeks ago. It came
Okay,
out like 3 weeks ago,
is
but
that in that new 4-part series on the Daily Wire?
it was a Daily Wire video, yeah.
Okay, we may or may
So, but
not
it's on
still
his
have a
YouTube. Well,
subscription
it's
for
on his
that.
YouTube. It's on his YouTube channel.
Okay,
But
okay, so we got a
it was
watch
just
list going.
interesting because yeah. So it the last statement that he said, and I'm gonna say this, and people who haven't seen it are not gonna know the context, not gonna know the entire rest of what he said leading up to
It's
this.
not a
But
spoiler.
no, it's not. But it was just a very interesting statement to make to end the video. I thought he said, what did he say? He said like, uh, stop that the churches need to stop fighting social injustice. They need to stop trying to save the bloody planet. They need to attend to saving souls.
Yeah, yeah. Since we're getting caught up for the month, did I tell you that I got into an argument with a climate change scientist?
No.
Okay, a couple of starter points. I didn't start the fight. First of all I did was try to get away from him, and he was like, "How dare
You
you not agree with me?" And so I was like, "Okay, like when somebody wants to argue and they just start like shouting their politics and their weird beliefs at you, and they're like, 'I dare you to disagree,' and then I just turned into Val Kilmer from Tombstone. I'm like, 'I'm your Huckleberry.' So he starts going on about global warming, and I'm like, I don't understand how this is any different than global cooling from the 70s. I mean, like the same people have been shouting doom is coming in 10 years for 50 years. And I just, when you got something to show me, then I'm willing to look. But like until then, I just don't want people cornering me. And the guy got super super mad, and he's like, "Well, I'm an analyst, and I've talked to blah blah blah." And I'm like, "Yeah, but that's the thing. You guys are big thinkers, and that's great. But like your job, a part of it is also to condescend to our level, the common folk, and explain things to us. One, in a way that we can understand, and two, show us things that's substantive to show that there's progress being made in the direction that you're asserting. And you haven't done either of those things." He goes, "Yes, we blah 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 blah," and well, you just don't understand. I'm saying, yeah. So essentially, you're saying I just need to listen to you because you said so, and that was basically how the argument went. And then he'd make another assertion, and he wouldn't give substantive evidence. And so I'd say, "So what evidence? Like, why are you? What about this thing?" It was terrible. And the guy got so mad that he said that I'm starting to sound like a Republican. And I was like, I don't know how a scientific conversation turned into an argument about politics, but you have a good day, okay? And he checked out. And then I went to talk to my boss because she was like, "What was that about?" And I was just like, "Climate guy." And then he came back and yelled at me some more. So,
Oh
yeah,
man, Reddy's in the YouTube chat. He said Johnny Ringo dot dot dot.
Johnny Ringo. I don't get that
So
joke. Johnny, is that a Tombstone?
uh maybe.
Sounds like a Tombstone joke.
Anyway, so here's so trying to get back on track here. Um there was other music that dropped as just Lecrae. Um and that being one, yeah, Reddy said it is Tombstone. So there
Okay,
you
okay. I
go.
was like, this is the only joke I know that sounds right. Ready, got you. One of
I
the best
personally prefer
westerns.
Ringo, but
One of the best westerns produced in our time. Like you can't compare it to the like the Dirty Harry movies or Dirty Harry Clint Eastwood movie. You can't compare it to the Clint Eastwood
yeah.
movies. That's a contemporary. I apologize. Please continue. I
No,
just
you're
realized I
fine.
took a hard turn.
So speaking of new music, there we go. There's a transition
There
back to
we
where
go.
we were. Uh Man, go and check out the newest 520 Presents release. We partnered up with BRM and Brody Da Vinci from Rapture Ready Productions North, and we helped
Hardest working
with
man in
the release.
CHH.
Yeah, man. But we were able to come alongside them and be a part of the release of the new song Rise. You can hear it on the 520 Collective Audio Mac page. Um, and by the time the podcast actually drops, it'll be across all digital streaming platforms. So check that out. Really good song. Excited to be part of it. Shout out to actually our episode sponsor this month, Spoken Worth. He dropped a new uh, single as well. First one that he's dropped since last year's Crucible Chronicles album, which was our 520 Collective Project of the Year at
I
the
was just gonna
Wavemaker
say that.
Awards. Yeah, man. So shout out to him. Just as we are is the name of that one. So a couple of really good tracks there. And then since the last podcast, you actually put out some new music too, man.
It's true.
Um, on Audio Mac.
Not dropping bars. I'll tell you what.
No,
That
but
is not what
so
I'm doing.
the song is called Alone. Tell us a little bit about it, man.
Okay, so the song is inspired by now this preacher's name escapes me. A.W. Tozer, and he's got a sermon. It's like a written editorial called "The Saint Must Walk Alone." But it's also inspired by the millennial generation, and I kind of look at the fact that a lot of it. This is negative and cynical, and I'm sorry if this triggers anybody or whatever. The millennial generation seems to be have unreasonable expectations put upon them from people who didn't prepare them for the challenges that they were going to face. And so I say, like, we were like the latchkey kids. We were the ones that watched the birth of the internet. We were the ones that watched 2 recessions and 2 wars, and everybody just expected us to be cool with it. And we're even like the first generation to perform worse than our parents financially. Like, we don't make as much money as our parents did. So like by now, our parents were like maybe buying houses or have already done that, and we're waiting for grandkids or something. Like we're barely getting started, and it's mostly like looking kind of like a bird's eye view over that situation and saying like we're this generation that's expected to walk through darkness and reach for glory at the same time. I say one of the lines is we tread between the glimmers and the sparks. And so like there's stuff happening around us all the time, and we're supposed to just like we're good. We're very stoic and not expected to respond to things. But we're also expected to kind of figure out the world ourselves. And I'm saying that there are, with all this stuff going around, I don't think it's reasonable to expect people to just figure it out and to do well. But the saint must still walk alone. And so that's our challenge is that, yeah, the world's messed up. We don't have mentors. We don't have people that are coming alongside us and making our lives better, maybe economically or culturally, but we still have a God who is there for us just like he's been there for everyone else on the planet. And so there's a nice little commentary at the end, just before the guitar solo from the A.W. Tozer thing, and it talks about the state of Christianity. And that's my challenge to the millennials is like, yes, we live in this messed up world, but here's your challenge, take it and run with it. And I'm not expecting everybody to do as well as maybe our parents are expecting us to do, but we can still be the church. That's the point of the whole song. And if you get more
Yeah,
out of
man.
that, then that's great. There's a sweet guitar solo
So
in there by Stacy Blades from LA Guns, which he doesn't know me personally, but I did acquire it legally and through a pack. So
nice.
pretty good stuff.
Yeah, no, it's a good song, man. It's a good song, and it's something I feel like very different, but it shows your range as an artist, man. So go check it out. We've got it posted to our playlist on Audio Mac as well, 520 Collective. So let me ask you this, man. As an artist, right?
Yeah.
You release this new song. Like, how would you feel if your song got picked up for like a commercial or a TV show or a movie? Like how would that make you feel personally
I'd
as
be
an
juiced up
artist?
about it. Especially with this particular song. I've written this song almost 10 years ago during the first Ferguson riots is when I wrote the song lyrically, and I haven't been able to produce it myself. So when I finally got something cobbled together and to put it out there and it's reasonable, and I'm just like, yeah, I'd be super juiced if somebody was like, we want to work with you. There's plenty of sections of that song that they could use.
Yeah, man. So the reason I asked that is because earlier this month, in our Discord server, if you're not in the Discord, go to 520collective.com, click on Discord in the menu, join it, sweet. You can interact with us. Maybe we take some of your interaction and we bring it to the podcast. We'll see. But like I said, over this past month, we did have our guy Darius Mullen in the Discord said, "Hey, I'd love for you guys to talk about sync placement, right? Sync licensing." Now, Zero and I, we're not experts on the ins and outs and all the details of sync licensing, but whenever he mentioned that, it did get me thinking about, you know, sync from another angle, right? So we've seen a lot of people, especially in the Christian hip hop community
Hmm.
over the last few years, that have found really good success with sync licensing, right? And getting those placements, which creates a whole new revenue stream for them. And I mean, honestly, probably a better revenue stream than you're going to get from, you know, your streams, maybe even some of your merch sales, depending on who you are in this Christian hip hop space, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, so, but one thing we've noticed is some of the artists who have had the most success end up taking a different approach to those songs that they end up getting those placements for, right? And what do we mean by that? Well, there is it's kind of this double-edged sword a little bit, right? Where you know Christian artists, they make total sense for sync placement, right? Because there shouldn't be anything in the music content wise
yeah.
that people who are going out and choosing this music for these placements should have to really worry about, right? There's nothing,
The-
shouldn't be anything explicit, vulgar, etc. That would be a concern. Um, but I think what we've seen happen though is on the flip side of that is if you are a very Christ centric, gospel centric artist where that gospel message and Jesus is, you know, heavy in your music, that might also play against you as well whenever it comes to uh, sync licensing, right?
As they're
Because
setting this up, I'm starting to realize there's multiple ways to frame and stage this.
yeah. I mean, like, I
If
think that's something that
if I can offer
artists that
one,
are. Oh yeah, go for it.
you have the angle of, does your music, was it selected because it fits the feel and the culture that they're trying to build around this video game or movie? A good example was like, you'll have a boxing game or a basketball, like a street ball game, and they'll just go get like a Nas track or some Ice Cube, and they're like, yeah, that's the feel that we're looking for, and they'll just throw it in there. Wu Tang, they just throw it right in there, and you're building your character, and there's Wu Tang playing in the background. You know, I'm not real sure if that's what most of our people are experiencing, but I know that's one of the approaches that you would hope for.
Yeah. Well, I think um, like I said, the one of the biggest kind of catch 22s on this for Christian artists right now is, you know, don't I maybe I can't submit my most Christ centric song because it's not as likely to get picked up. You know, Reddy's in the YouTube chat. He's throwing out a bunch of examples of guys who have gotten these placements. You know, Brinson got placement with AEW wrestling, and that makes sense. Brinson's music is hype. It's a lot of energy. It fits that wrestling world, right?
Does he
And
break the
then
mold for
um,
what we were just about to talk about in that respect?
so I think so. I think we can come back around to that in just a moment. I'd love to. It'd be awesome if we were able to have Brinson in here to talk about that. But maybe we can do that on a Twitter space with him. But another example that Reddy threw out is Toby Nwigwe and getting placement on NBA 2K. Now Toby makes sense. I mean, yes, Toby, by all accounts and everything we know, he is a believer. I don't think he considers himself a Christian hip hop artist. He is a believer. His music is relatively clean, but it also, I mean, it's right there along with anyone in the mainstream, right?
What do you mean?
Talking about,
In
I mean, as far as
quality?
like quality and the sound, and I mean, you know, performing on the BET Awards and all this stuff that he's been able to do. And he works with a ton of mainstream, you know, rappers as well. Two Chains and Paul Wall, and I can't remember everyone that he's worked with, but you know, just a ton of guys
Who is
that
Omega
you would
Sparks?
expect to see.
I'm gonna have to look at that
Uh,
one.
yeah,
So
but
okay,
so
instead of like
okay,
listing
but
examples that we know of,
well,
like
but
let's.
well, let me pose the question.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me pose the question. So, as I got to thinking about this, right, the question that came to me, and it goes along with some of the conversations that we see out here, like, you know, in like the Christian hip hop Twitterverse and stuff, right? My question becomes, as an artist, if you see other people having success in this lane, you know, in this sync lane, and you think maybe I can do that, I think one big question you got to ask yourself is, what am I willing to compromise when it comes to my music and my message in order to get those placements? So let's go back to you, man, for a second. So, you know, you listen to Alone, you know, it's definitely got the gospel in it, right? You understand your faith and where you're coming from in it. Um, what if you threw it out there for sync and someone said, "Man, hey, we love the sound. We'd love to use this. Can you change the lyrics a little bit because we're not trying to appeal to a Christian audience?"
That would
What's your
be
thoughts there?
weird. I would definitely, and I'm not trying to like be nuanced here, but like the lyrics are, they're not gospel lyrics. The gospel is not a part of that song. It's it's one of those rare songs where I'm not talking about the gospel. I'm talking about maybe a challenge in the life of Christians and in a particular generation,
But I think
and how
whenever
the
you
church
listen
is a
to,
part of that generation. But there is some
I
very
think whenever
specific stuff in there. Go ahead.
yeah, and I think whenever you listen to music from the Legend Zero, there's no doubt about your faith. and where you
Yeah,
stand
no, I
on
don't
stuff.
shy away from my faith. I just not.
Yeah.
There's a lot of songs that aren't necessarily the gospel, but it is written to and for Christians. Most of my music, like 98% of the music, is written to and for Christians about a specific part of our faith. And so, let's even for alone. There is that part where it's saying like, the biggest weakness of Christians, and that's the in that spoken word part, and it's going on. And if they were like, can you take that out of the song? And that would bug me a little bit. I'm not sure what I would tell them because I'm not expecting something like that to happen. And I guess I get the dilemma that a lot of artists have, but that's like a finished work, and I think that's
Yeah.
also the other big challenge for it. So it's easy to say like, I'll never do that. That's not gonna happen. And like if it's like, I definitely be like, why? Like what's the problem? Just play the song. I'll give you stems. You can do whatever you want to do with it, but that's what I'm gonna do. I'm not gonna dismantle the song and like reflatten it or whatever. Like I'm gonna put up a fight. But
Yeah. Well, okay. So let's pose it a different way then. What if they come to you, hey, we like this song. We would like to get you as an artist involved in this commercial,
okay.
right? Can you make something similar, but keep the religious stuff out of it? What's your thought there? And again, I think what we're talking about is um, something that really comes down to a lot of conviction
A lot of
on
conviction.
this.
Yeah.
And we're gonna bring in someone else to kind of pose this question too as well here in a minute. But let's go back to you. Shout out to Lost and Found hanging out with us on YouTube. Him and Reddy both said this is an interesting topic, and Reddy actually posed a question that we'll get around to as well. But what about that? So they come back to you. They say, "Hey, we like the sound. We would like something similar. However, we don't want the religious aspect of it involved."
So this is the nuance that I take as an artist. I'm willing to make that deal because I've made those songs before. Um, like I said, I see a subject that's something that'd be cool to write about. I did a Smashing Pumpkins cover because I agree with what he's saying. I don't have a problem with that, and it's not contrary to the gospel. It's not contrary to my convictions as a Christian. However, there's a difference between, in my opinion, that company coming to me and saying, "Hey, can you make, can we place this order for this thing?" And then me just there's a difference between that and me spending a bunch of time making a bunch of music that I probably don't even really want to make in hopes of landing that spot. And I think that's maybe the nuance for me personally. How's that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fine. Like, I think what we're seeing is, um, again, you got a lot of artists who have figured out I can actually make some good money doing this, right?
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, while I'm not saying that the music that they've made for, specifically for Sync is bad, that's not what I'm saying. Because that's what a lot of them are doing is they're making songs that are specifically like, we're not trying to release this as singles. We are putting this out there specifically to pitch it for placement
Yeah.
in
See,
film
like
and
me
whatnot, right?
as an artist,
Um,
that's not something I would enjoy doing. As a
yeah,
Christian,
but
having somebody ask you to make a song that's not necessarily religious, I don't really have a problem with that, but I do have a problem with maybe the context of the song if it's going
yeah,
too far. And maybe even the
well,
context of the material that it's going to be used with. I'm not making music for porn. I'm not making music for slasher films. I'm not making music for anything that I know is going to be anti-Christ. So that's going to be a big
yeah,
part of working with
well,
me as an artist.
and I think that's where it kind of hits me is that what you end up having is songs with no real depth to them, right?
That's where I wanted to go was because I feel like I'm being really easygoing on this topic for how I thought this was going to go. it's I never wanted to be the guy that just makes background music for stuff and nobody knows who I am.
Yeah,
Um,
it sounds good, but no one can tell you all what it's saying because that part doesn't really matter.
yeah, and I give you an example. There's a guy named Cell Dweller who that's what he does is he makes background music, and that's what he set out to do. And then he got a guy that started getting him placements. Now he makes music for video games and stuff. And so I can see that being an ends to a means, but as a career like that, I don't see that as something to aspire to. I see that as maybe something that you have, like when you just have to go to the temp service and get a job at the factory because you unexpectedly lost your job and you need to do something, you know? Or you got to go flip burgers for a while until you find something else. Like that's the equivalent of that sort of deal. But then when you get, you know, the next Street Fighter coming to you and saying, "Hey, we need some background music and we think you'd be perfect." Now you have a relationship to work. I don't have a problem with that relationship. It's that step below where it's like you're making hundreds of songs and just hoping that somebody, and then you fall into this trap of everything has to agree with everybody and everything has to appeal to as much as possible, and you can never make anything specific or dangerous or out of the box because it all needs to be where everybody likes it. It's just like that rapper I was saying that I don't like when the rapper's trying to appeal to everyone. You can't pray for people. You have to send good vibes and just be positive. And you know, this is not that's not a message. There's nothing. It's like vanilla ice cream all the time.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm
Well,
rambling now. Like I'm getting into a
no,
rant. I
you're
can
fine,
feel
man.
it.
No, hey, it's good. Do you got more? Because I'll let you keep going.
Um, yeah. Uh, so
keep going, and then eventually
the
I'm gonna throw another question at you.
well, the reason I'm targeting this aspect of it is because you have the thing where you're building your skills and you're making a bunch of music and you're putting stuff out there and you're like, this isn't quite what I was going for, but it's pretty good, so I'll put it up for sync. Maybe that's your attitude. So you're just popping some stuff up there and it's like selling your extra photos to stocks, you know, but you have a goal in mind. Is like you want to be Danny Elfman. You don't want to be the nameless background guy. Unless maybe you do. Maybe you just like, I just like money and this is what I'm going to do and whatever, I don't care. If you don't care, then you don't then none of this conversation matters. But like the background musician I feel has always had to have some sort of goal in mind. Like Danny Elfman is inspirational to me. And he makes the weirdest, most bizarre music you've ever heard in your life. It's just not something that I would want to listen to. His music, I don't like his music. But then you hear the soundtrack for Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse, and you hear the soundtrack from Beetlejuice, and all these other music, Tim Burton films that he's involved in. You're like, Danny Elfman's a genius. I think he did the first Batman film. So now, like when that leads into like you're a quirky musician, you got your own thing going over here, and then somebody says, "Hey, can you make music for this movie?" And you're doing like Daft Punk. They made their music soundtrack specifically for the movie. Like they scored the movie. Like that's the goal. You know, so I don't want to make a moral issue out of it. To me, I think it is a big part of it is the preference. But
Yeah.
the moral issue I guess I have with it would be that it's a distraction, or it can be a distraction when it becomes your main thing. I don't know if that makes sense.
No, it does. It does. And Lost and Found made a good comment in the YouTube chat. He said you can separate your sync music from your artistry. I mean, and dude, there's no arguing this. He said these artists are making a bag off of these generic sync tracks. I get it.
That's the one good thing about this.
I get it.
But that the last line is the other 90% of it is generic sync tracks. That's not something to be proud of. The money that you make is something to be proud of, but the fact that you're just creating more mediocrity for the world to consume is not something to be proud of. That's just a way to get paid. That's like being proud that you flipping burgers. That's the musical
right.
equivalent of flipping burgers is what I'm saying. Like, yeah, you got to get paid and do what you got to do to get paid, but that's not a goal. Making generic stuff. Like there's no
So, you know,
legendary generic artist.
what I wish for Christian artists is that they don't have to sacrifice their substance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like my hope would be that we are that they are making music that is so good that the people going out and choosing these songs, even if it's got Jesus in it, they can't deny the quality of it. And they're like, you know what? Forget it. I'm using it anyway. It's that good of a song.
Yeah, like when your
Like
sync
that would be
tracks,
my hope.
your sync tracks are your throwaways because you were practicing, and you're like, it's all right. I'll make it a sync track, and you continue building your craft. I'm saying, don't get complacent in the sync trap. Ooh, we
Yeah.
should have called that the episode "Sync Trap." Like, don't
Oh,
get
we can
complacent
edit.
there. Like, it's
We
it's a
can edit.
living. It's a living. It's an honest living. You might get paid pretty well.
Yeah.
So what is the result? What is the end result of your living? Is commercials for TV shows about people that are spending money and how fancy their hotel room is, or you know what I mean? Like, if that's your legacy, is like some dude stunting over your track. I guess I'm glad you got paid, but that's not something to really be proud of. Football commercials pretty cool. That is pretty cool when the people land those spots. But it's the part that,
Yeah.
like, let's just be honest. It's the part of your song where it goes, bam, bam, ooh, yeah. You're not saying anything, so like, I'm glad you got paid to go, ooh, yeah. And I'm not trying to like denigrate that at the same time. But I'm saying, like, those are your throwaways. Your craft and the thing that brings glory to God is the stuff that you create that actually brings glory to God. And that's your craft. And I'm hoping that the sync trap doesn't become your distraction because you're chasing the bag. Because you can't serve God and mammon. Give mammon
And
your
that's the thing.
throwaways.
Yeah, and that's the thing, man. Is like, as a Christian artist, if you're gonna attach Christian to your artistry, right? If you're willing to to be labeled a Christian artist, I would hope that you're doing so because that message is extremely important to you, right? So exactly how important is it if you're willing to bend a little bit or not say the things that you actually want to say
Yeah, because I
just
know a
in order
guy
to make
that
this
got that
money,
sync job and he hated it. He was like, I never get to write what I want to write. I never get to put the message that I'm trying to say. I never get to say anything. There's like or these like school assembly guys that like they go out and they're saying, we want you to go out and inspire these huge groups of kids to be positive, mediocre people and don't mention Jesus or God. Because that's what you're doing. You're getting
Yeah.
gassed up, the light turns green, and you don't go because you can't preach the gospel. And you're like, you started as the guy who wanted to preach the gospel, and now you're getting paid to tell people to be positive. And that's the sync trap that I'm trying to like put out there. We got some more activity in the chat
We
here.
do have some stuff. Let me start with going back to this question that Reddy posed earlier, which is a kind of an interesting one. What if they didn't ask you to necessarily change any lyrics, but what if they just said, hey, you know what, we're gonna put it in, but whenever you say Jesus, we're gonna bleep that out? Like I think I would pass on that because I don't know. I mean, to me, everyone, like when curse words are bleeped out of other songs, everyone still knows what's going on.
Is that a form of
Like,
is that a form of
huh?
blasphemy? When you bleep
Uh,
Jesus' name out like a curse word, is that a form of blasphemy? Like
man,
I'm genuinely asking because I don't know. Like I didn't think about it that way. We were just talking about, like, I was explaining to my son, using God's name in place of a curse word is considered blasphemy. And then you
yeah,
said that, and those two dots just connect. Oh my goodness.
yeah. I don't know. Like, I would hope that would be like a hard pass. Like, nah, we're not gonna do that.
D.
I'd
James brought
skip
up
it.
how
But
Andy Minial's song "You Can't Stop Me" has been thrown out there for a lot of stuff, and I think that's an excellent
yeah,
example of how you want your songs to be used in sync.
but
It's yes,
yeah.
it's the
Well,
oohs and the ahs, but like he ain't changing
I
that
say
song.
no, but like you were saying though, it's a very specific part of that song. It's that chorus, right? It's that hook. and I get it. And we're not
But
knocking
when
it.
you go
We're not knocking it.
download the
He
song,
made
it's the opposite of like what was that? It was like a Arby's commercial or a Bounty commercial or something. And it's like, who got the sauce? I got the sauce. You got the, and I was like, dang, like Paper Towels is making better trap music than what I've. So I went and listened to the song, and that song is gross. It's
yeah,
nasty, and I'm like, I don't.
yeah.
You put that out there for everybody to hear, and the song is nasty, and like they didn't ask her to change them lyrics, so like you shouldn't have to change your lyrics.
Yeah. So let's look at what Lost and Found is saying here, because I agree. I mean, I totally get where Lost and Found's coming with here. He says, I don't know. I don't think you glorify God more or any less by making generic sync tracks. Yeah, I totally get that statement. He goes on to say, I personally hate it when artists do it, but I don't see any sin in it.
I agree. I
Could
don't think
just be
there's
me
any
though.
sin
Yeah,
in it.
I don't think there's sin.
I do think
I
it
think it's
glorifies
just
God
a more.
less. You said you don't think it's more or less. I think it's less. I don't think there's any glory
I
in
still
it. I think there's money in
well,
it, which is still good,
and yeah,
but
and
not in a
I think
spiritual
that's
way.
where I think that's where everything we're talking about right now seriously comes down to conviction, and everyone's conviction is going to be different,
And it
right?
could be one of those things where you're opening the doors where you're actually preaching the gospel behind the scenes and stuff. You know, like we all have secular day jobs where you have an
Yeah,
opportunity to stand on God's principles in your day job and just be excellent. And maybe you're the best dishwasher in the world, but people just like, man, something about this guy. Like, that's what I'm like. You have a generic job, but your excellence brings glory to God in a specific way. Maybe there's something to be said for that in the sync world. I'm just missing it. I mean, only God knows. In this case, I'm just not seeing it. I see like
yeah,
that's a good way to get paid. That's a pretty good way.
right.
That's actually a
Well,
pretty
that's
good
what
way to get paid.
and 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 that's where I'm like, I can't hate on people that are doing it, right? Because let's be honest, there's not a lot of Christian hip hop artists that are making enough money to do this full time to make a living off of this, right? So
Here's
this is a way to supplement it,
here's
you
where it's a
know?
problem for
Uh,
me is when you're like, oh, who's that artist? Or what, somebody's like, oh, my boy got a sync placement. Oh yeah, what song is it? It's Dust Your Shoes Off, and the whole song about Dust Your Shoes, and it's like, okay, that's cool. And then like he gets another stuff, you know, and like now everything that he's getting recognized for is this like generic crap that doesn't mean anything, and then like it just drowns out the entire message of that artist.
yeah.
You know, like
Or the other side of it, and I mean, I think this kind of goes into even like mainstream artists as well, right? Like you hear a song in a placement because
mm,
they're very particular about what parts of those songs that they play when, right? So
yeah,
you're only going to hear a clip of it, and then you hear, you're like, oh, that's cool, I'm gonna go check it out. And then you got uh little baby doo-doo diapers out here that is swearing up and down, and you're like, oh, I didn't know it was that, and it turns that listener off. I guess the flip side would be if someone who has a problem with Christianity hears your sync song and thinks it sounds good, and they go to check out the rest of your catalog, and it is very gospel centric, and they're turned off by that. I don't
yeah, but
know.
I don't know. Those people are gonna get burned
I,
up
th-
with the
I
rest of
think that,
everything
but
else.
that yeah, that goes into a conversation of just the way that you're presented as an artist overall. You
Um,
know, your image and
yeah,
that public persona.
you
Um,
gotta set the tone. Me and you were talking about that in a different context. Let people know who you are and what you are about when you show up, so they're not surprised by it
yeah,
later, and they hear your ooh
yeah,
ah track, and then they're like, they get the gospel. That's a win. I don't care if they get mad or not. That is a win, because yeah, that
right,
you know Susie and Bobby are mad, but you also got Ray Ray over here getting saved because he don't feel alone no more.
yeah.
And
Well,
this isn't an issue
again,
of like sin. This is an issue of excellence, in my opinion. Like,
again, man, like, you know, the old argument was that Christian hip hop music couldn't hang with mainstream hip hop music. That narrative has changed. That's out the window, right?
yeah.
There's so
Well,
many people, even
maybe that narrative
well,
has
no,
changed. Like it'll stay that way as long
no,
as the excellent people refuse to like are willing to
well,
keep dialing it back. I can see doing it sometime,
well,
but that's your main thing.
here's what I'm saying though. It goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier. Like again, that's out the window. We're on par. There's even non-believers who will listen to Christian hip hop and say, "Oh, yeah, this is just as good as whatever." Like I've heard that out of their mouths.
Mm-hmm.
So now my thing is, okay, let's not just be satisfied with, okay, we're just as good. Let's keep pushing and let's become better to the point where it's so good people just are willing to just take it as it is.
And that's the goal for me is
Right.
like you want like the Bible says we're supposed to be a peculiar people, and I would hope that our music would become peculiar over time. Our throwaways are dope. We're giving them to the sync place. The ooh ah part of our song is getting picked up. That's cool, but we're striving for a more excellent thing in our excellence. So it's almost like you're so excellent that the mediocre is blowing people away as a goal.
Yeah.
And I'm just kind of like trying to be
Well,
visionary here.
well,
That's what I
if
hope for the artist. But normally when I listen to these catalogs, it's just like decent background music that's not intrusive enough to stop the conversation, so I can just like have something in the background.
yeah, I mean, if Christian artists become the trendsetters, the trendsetters, right? And we're creating a sonic experience that you can't find anywhere else, then we're also kind of not giving these people an option but to use it regardless of what the message is, right? So then you can share that message that uh, is your intent from the get-go or
Yeah.
through all this, right? You don't have to, you no longer have to water down in order to make that revenue stream. You can, because you're doing something that nobody else is doing and people want it, right? Let's bring in, we gave him a shout out earlier in the podcast. Hopefully he is ready to unmute. We got our guy DJ Expander on the Discord with us. Go ahead, if you're on there, man, go ahead and unmute so you can talk to us for a minute. Again, newest member of the writing team and an artist in his own right.
Yeah.
So DJ
And this is
Expander, are you
funny.
there?
When he starts talking, you can see Peter Parker in the middle of his icon start dancing. It's hilarious.
What's good, y'all?
Hey, what's up, man? So you've been listening to the conversation, dude. And I know, you've released, I think just one song, right? To this
Yeah,
point.
just one song.
Yeah. So I mean, but you're a young guy. You're just getting your feet wet. You're getting started. What are your thoughts, man? Like, as someone that's really still working on finding your way in this whole Christian hip hop, just music industry in general, like what is important to you as a young artist? Is it important? Is it more important for you to make something that is going to create um, a difference in your bank account, or are you focused on developing your message at this point? Like we're not even necessarily talking about sync in that question, just like in general, like where are you trying to go with your music career right now?
Okay, so for me, I think it should be a balance of both, but I don't think you should sacrifice sharing the gospel with people for money, if that makes sense. So so for me, I would definitely, you know, aim to, make money, but I would not try to make money by limiting the amount of creativity or the amount of uh, gospel centric content that goes into my songs.
Yeah. So you in your song, your chorus, your hook, you basically just kind of repeating this, what Jesus said to us, right? Like, what are we supposed to do? We're supposed to love God. We're supposed to love people, right?
Yeah.
So you said your song in there, and what if they did come back to you and they were like, "Hey, yo, the love people part, man, we're all about that. That's the message we want to share. What can we do about that God piece
Oh,
in there?" What's your response there, man?
Well, my response would be, you know how Romans 1:16 we're supposed to be unashamed of the gospel? I would just say if it, I would not sacrifice a godly message for, my bank account. That
Yeah.
would be my response, and my response would be, "Hey, I'm sorry, I can't, I can't take that out of there because it's, what I believe in." So,
Right. Yeah. And DJ Lost and Found makes a good point in the chat as well. There are some songs, man, like Coming In Hot by Andy and Lecrae. Dude, that song got like everywhere.
yeah,
It
baseball games, everything.
dude, I mean, Kim Kardashian used it. I mean, everywhere. Right.
Yeah.
And there are going to be those kind of one-offs that go beyond
Yeah,
for
and
these artists.
I don't think
But
it's
I mean,
a one-off. I think it's because, like that first category when I was talking about Ice Cube and Wu-Tang, they respect the artist, and so they just want a little piece of that song, and they break off the piece that they want to use, which is similar to what you were asking me, like, would I make a version of the song without Jesus? And I'm just like, I don't think that's an option. If you want the song, you can use it, and I'll give you the stems, but like, I'm not making you a version of the song I'm done with this song. That's it.
yeah.
They don't respect the artist enough to use what he's got, then they don't respect the artist. And that's why Minio is getting those spots, because they respect him and they want a little piece of that.
Yeah.
And it's a good song. He deserves to be respected for it.
And I do feel like it's one thing if it's a song that maybe isn't gospel centric and maybe it's just a for fun song.
Mm-hmm.
But what I don't get is if you already have a gospel centric song, why you would sacrifice the gospel gospel centric content for your bank account. That's what I wouldn't get.
Yeah. I actually struggled with this concept of like, I was going to release just the instrumental versions of my songs, and like I don't know, I couldn't put my finger on it, but it was like it bothers me. Or even like getting into like the Monster Cat type deal where you're just making cool sounding instrumentals for video games. Not like, it doesn't motivate me. Just, it wouldn't be sinful, it wouldn't be wrong, but just like I can't. I'm just, you know what I mean? Like, I can't even put it into words.
Yeah. So I think from what I'm hearing and just my personal thoughts is that we're not upset with people trying to make a living. That's not it. We get it that Christian artists, they gotta make money like everybody else, right?
Yeah.
So
Yep.
Dial in, make sure you're plugged in and you're pushing in and you're communicating with the Spirit on a daily basis, and you're seeking where God is leading you, and you're secure in that, right? To know like, hey, this is where my conviction lies. I think at some point you do have to have a line somewhere, and that line's going to look different from artist to artist, right? But know where your line is so that whenever you get to it, you're not willing to cross it at that point, just for a little bit of paper, right?
Because
I'm not saying you can't you can be fine with doing just kind of a generic topic, right? That is going to work, as long as you're not crossing that personal line for you. But that comes with having a strong relationship in place and being tuned in with that guidance that you were receiving. So, and then again, at the end of the day, I'm going to keep just encouraging artists to, man, I mean, just keep working on your craft, man. Pour your whole heart into it. Think about the inspiration you have comes from the ultimate creator. Tap into that. And who knows what's going to come out of this Christian hip hop space, man. And we can, I think, it might not be as fast as we're wanting it to, but we've shown that we can catch up and we can make up this ground that was supposedly there, at one point behind mainstream artists, to where we're there. So now we just keep right on going. We don't slow down, right? We keep pushing forward so that we are the ones who are leading in this creativity. So and I think when that happens, people got to get on board with it.
I feel like
Because I don't think there's going to be a choice.
I
I
feel
really
like
don't. So
I feel like
yeah,
we should bring some sort of relevant scripture into this, so we're not just making like demagogue or logical arguments. And I would relate this back to 1 Corinthians 10:31. It says, "So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." There's greater context within 1 Corinthians 10 for that, but it's applicable to this conversation. There's also okay, so to go to the verse before, it says, "If I partake in a meal with thankfulness, why am I denounced because of that which I give thanks? So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do it all for the glory of God." And so this could push back on the people that are saying you shouldn't do this. He's like, look, if God blessed me to be able to make chip tunes for a video game, and I'm doing this out of thankfulness, chill out. This is what God gave me. So I don't want to condemn the person that's doing that. What I'm concerned about mostly is, like I said, the sink trap, where you're putting yourself in a position and an environment where you are drifting further away from the gospel for the sake of a paycheck through mediocrity. And then there's another hard slam. It's not a scripture, but it's a old I say old. No, it's the truth from his I can't remember the name of that album, but the song Price Tag with Triple E on it. Are you guys familiar with that one?
Yeah, keep going.
Okay. I brought up the lyrics. It says, "I know some dudes that are Christians that produce for the wicked, and I know some musicians that use their gift in the church, but the same musicians that use their gift in the church produce and play for the wicked, but they call it work. And they try to justify and say that it's just a job, but that's a customized line that they use to compromise. Because just to adjust the knob on your radio, here we go, another song a saint produced that's producing lust and lies." It goes into more of it, but we're looking at a very clear, concise message about this particular subject that is informative to the church. It supports God's teachings, and it opens your mind to this very subject. And it's a song versus creating something generic that doesn't really mean anything. Those are your options that are laid before you. So either way, if you're opening it with open book, yes, thank you. If you are producing what you're producing through thankfulness, and you're doing it for the glory of God, then make sure that is in the forefront of what you're doing. Because when you're producing for the glory of God, you're not going to be making Hennessy and liquor commercials. You're not going to be making porn soundtracks. You're not going to be doing that stuff. And I know that there's a lot of people that it's very tempting that once you start going down that road, you're just like, whatever. Like, I'm getting paid. But that's an issue. And that is an issue. Are you doing this to the glory of God?
Yeah. So I want to hear what listeners have to think about this. So the easiest thing to do, again, guys, jump in our Discord server, hit us up, talk to us right there. Or if you can't jump into the Discord, go to FiveTwentyClub.com, go to our podcast post and just leave a comment. Let us know what you think on this topic. I think another thing that kind of goes along with this, right, is in order to increase that revenue stream would be, just keep building that audience, right? Keep building that fan base. And one way you can do that is by making sure you have a newsletter going and you're getting those emails so you can communicate with those people that do want to support you. And that takes us to our industry insider interview here on the 520 Collective podcast. This month, we've got Nora Rahimian. She is one of the hosts of Office Hours along with Stowe. You've heard him on the podcast before. But, man, she is all over, and she is a big advocate for newsletters. And we got a chance to talk to her, so that's coming up.
Yeah, you're going to have to punch in. Don't worry about it.
So big advocate for newsletters, and that is coming up on the Industry Insider interview after the break. So stick around with us, check it out, and we will be back with you guys again next month.
So there was one thing that I wanted to throw in there that I totally forgot.
I've stopped my recording so we can talk about whatever with the guys. I mean, shout out to Lost and Found, and shout out to Ready Rider for hanging out with us tonight. Appreciate you, fellas. Shout out to DJ Expander for hopping in.
Yeah, thanks to everybody for the
stream
comments
while we're recording.
We always, I always appreciate the comments, especially those that cause us to look at the other side of the argument that I'm taking. Yeah.
DJ Lost and Found is so much smarter than me.
I was gonna say I would hope that we would start to reach out to some Christian sync companies and that they would begin to make themselves known, and not just the ones that are like founded by a Christian but they still do the same business of producing watered down stuff that nobody knows what they're talking about. Like explicitly Christian produced, Christian founded, but then like for Christian movies, you know, like maybe it's going to take us getting to a point there where the music in the movies are better than the movies themselves, but they're getting this great music because they're pulling from a Christian sync company. Like we got to start somewhere, and that's something that I'm not familiar with, and maybe they exist.
I say, do we know if there are any?
I know of a bunch of Christians that are in the secular sync business, and that's why they feel like they have to draw back. But that's not what I'm talking about.
I don't know. Lost and Found, if you're still there or ready, I don't know if you guys know if there is a specifically Christian sync.
Yeah, I would be interested to see that.
Because it feeds back into that sync trap. I know, go ahead.
I know, like, obviously, I know, like, there are definitely like some Christian like record pools and stuff.
That is,
but that's more like for DJ and radio.
Okay, that's something that I should even be plugged into. Really, they cost like $500. I don't know. When I was a secular DJ, they were pretty expensive.
You can check out UGM Digital.
Okay, well, we need to get into that and talk to some people from that world about the syncing stuff, because we need to get ever more closer to these types of industries so that Christians don't have to compromise when they, you know, like, and then it would be such a win for somebody to open something like that, and they could get like Tommy Prophet and Beco and Beacon Light to come over and start producing for them. And then they could get, you know, some of these other Christians that we know do sync licensing to come on out of that world and get into the Christian movie and music world. I don't know. Maybe it's a pay cut that they're going to have to take or something. But
I think it's the next logical step, because I think we've got, and when I say we, I mean, obviously, I mean the space in general, but I think the Christian music industry has its hands in a lot of these other areas. But with the way that sync placement has just continues this upward trajectory.
It's like the artists. New record deal.
Yeah, I mean, it only makes sense that would be like the next step, right? Because I mean, we got distribution, you know, Christian distribution companies. Like I said, we got the record pools. We're kind of in these other areas. This is the next one that I think we got to see some inroads made.
This really got me going, because there's an artist, her name is Zania Pax, that I like, and I started looking into her history and stuff, because I first found out about her through that Spider-Man movie, the one with Miles Morales, the Obama Spider-Man, and it was like, why can't I find this song? Because it's not on the soundtrack. It's when Penny Parker is inside her giant spider robot. She's pushing buttons and eating snacks and crap, and there's the song playing in the background. And I was like, why can't I find this song? And then I find out her name is Zania Pax, and I found a couple articles that were written about her, and she did some interviews and stuff, and all this stuff disappeared all at once. And so I'm like, wow, that was weird. So I started like searching into her history and stuff, and find out she's a sync artist by career, like I think she was like a music teacher or something, but like she spent all this time doing sync, and she's got a long list of like CW type TV shows and stuff where she's done songs for that stuff, but she hasn't really been able to do the music that
Well,
she wanted to do.
and I
And
don't,
now that
but
she's
I don't,
free, she's trying to do the music that she wants to do, and it's like not only is it kind of dated, but it's kind of hard to develop that muscle when you're not allowed to.
yeah. I will say this though. I think, if you enjoy, that lane of sync licensing of creating music specifically for um these kinds of like different kinds of film and
Mm-hmm.
stuff, then I mean, dude, there's then push into that too. I mean, like go all in because I think you
Yeah,
can be creative. Like here's what I mean is that because I think when you really get into it and you're committed, then you start thinking about the music you're creating differently as well, right? Because like we had the conversation with Poetics when he was on the podcast
he's a really good
earlier
example
in the
because
year.
he's not a
You know,
rapper; he's a producer,
yeah,
and that's a natural fit for a producer. I was
but
just
but
thinking like
you're
people
no
who don't
longer
rap or sing.
trying to just make a song that sounds good, that kind of has these generic lyrics. Now, whenever you're like all in on it, you're starting to think, okay, this that I'm creating right now, what kind of scene is this in?
Yeah,
And you're creating music for something very specific
that's where the real heat
now.
is too, because even some of these secular artists who don't really have to hold back because they're super popular or whatever, is it Waka Flocka at the end of the Ninja Turtles movie? I don't remember who it was, but I remember like I went to the Ninja Turtles movie with my kid and we're listening to this and I'm like, oh my god, this is terrible. And every movie that I take my kids to, they have to have some like new artist that they're a signed artist, they're famous, but they're making sync music, and it's such a step down for them because they're trying. It's just it's what's these
Yeah,
others? Sonic 2. They got a bunch of stuff from there, and Kid Cudi is making music for it. It's just not good. But like when the
right.
artists that are just musicians and producers do it, like something comes out of that. I actually
Yeah,
find myself
yeah.
looking for that music.
Hmm. Lost and found. I get you, man. Multitasking. Appreciate you listening. Hey, I will say this. Lost and found. I did see your message come in. I'm gonna get back to you. I've just been wrapped up preparing for this podcast, so I'm gonna get back to you. And yeah, we're gonna get some stuff planned out. Um, Shout out to Lost and Found, man. He's been dropping killer singles, getting ready to drop
Yeah,
an amazing album.
I added
Um,
that one song from
50,
the. Go ahead.
50 CHH artists on this album that he's getting ready to drop, man.
50 artists on one
Crazy.
album.
50 artists on the album.
That's like what
So,
Timberland was trying to do.
dude,
Like this is the career that what's that other that the fat guy who just yells. The, I'm so tired.
Khaled.
Khaled, thank you. That's like the career that
Yeah,
he's trying to do. Like that's good.
that
That's
guy.
like that. Well, what he is like he doesn't do it.
I'm sorry. Okay, so my favorite TV show of all time is Scrubs. And
Okay.
there's just certain stuff that I will see or hear, and it automatically brings a scene from Scrubs to my head. And when you said that, I can't help but see Dr. Perry Cox going, "You are what you eat," and you went out and ate a whole fat guy, didn't
He
you?
went out a whole whole fat guy. That's hilarious.
Oh man. So,
I
but
like
yeah, I mean, no, dude. And here's the thing: I would love, um, I do think it would be cool to see if we can't talk to Brinson. And shout out to Brinson too, man. We forgot whenever we were talking about new music, dude. Brinson dropped his 11th studio album and a mixtape on the same day since the last podcast. So shout out to him. We're gonna have a
God Chasers, right?
stream. Yeah,
I'm gonna
God
open
Chasers,
that
man.
tab
We're
right now
gonna
because I straight forgot to go download it last week like I was supposed to.
we're gonna have a stream soon where we're gonna talk about it. So we're gonna do like our response our reaction to the album. So be paying attention to that. If you're not in the Twitter community, go follow and be part of the Twitter community, because we will give first notice there when we're going to do that. As well as we got a couple of other Twitter spaces that we are planning as well. So our Twitter community will get that news first, and our Discord server. But I mean, dude, like Reddy said, like, here's the thing, and why I would love to get Brinson on another Twitter space, because we just did a Twitter space not very long ago with Brinson, and we talked about his new album. But I'd love to get him on there and talk about that.
Bro,
being
his
able to get
website
plugged
is
in with
amazing.
yeah. But him being able to get plugged in with AEW wrestling, right? And like I said, you know, he's a big wrestling fan. The music he makes total sense for the wrestling world. But one thing you gotta say about Brinson, man, is there's no doubt that he loves Jesus when you listen to his music, right? So, thank you. Okay. But sorry, but you know, he was able to get plugged into AEW, and I know he's not willing to water down his message. So I think
That's
that
the
would be an
goal right there,
interesting
man.
conversation for us to have.
And
Yeah.
that's really all I've been trying to point to at this time. Is like that's the dream, that's the goal, is where you don't have to compromise. And I've taken a lot of time away from music to kind of just, I don't know, just grow into a better man, really, because I got kids, I got family. I'm trying to learn more. I'm not trying to be a worship leader. I'm not trying to be an artist. I'm not trying to do any of that. I'm just doing my thing. And you feel that bubbling up when you're ready to make music again, and it's like you come back and you're like, all this stuff that I did before, like, just like with Brinson, the dude is so full of joy in life. Why wouldn't you want that? You know, like this all this like dark and broody stuff. I was listening to an NF song today with my kid, and there was like nothing spiritual, nothing edifying about the song, and it was dark. And I was like, wow, so they successfully turned NF into
Daddy,
yeah.
can you play with me?
Yep, I'm gonna pray with you.
Well,
can I do it after the podcast?
I think some
Okay, I'll be back.
there's some interesting stuff with whenever it comes to NF.
Anyways, I was gonna say they
don't know,
turned him
like,
into Billie Eilish, or replaced him with Billie Eilish, because she's basically just NF that sings.
I mean, I have my feelings about NF.
That's gonna hurt some people's feelings, and I don't even care, man. NF, like, I'm listening to my kid in the car, and like they listen to like kid songs about Jesus and sing that stuff, and then we put it on NF, and it's like how he's dealing with mental health problems, and he's the best rapper, and he dropped a record and it got a lot of plays, and it's like him and Eminem are fighting over like who can rap faster, and the faster he raps, the stronger he gets. I don't know, like, just I want my kids to learn about Jesus. They're asking questions about God and stuff, and then I got NF playing in the background. It's ridiculous. I don't know what my problem is.
Yeah.
So,
dude, Expander, thank you for hopping in and hanging out with us, man.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah, you need to talk more so I can talk less, Expander.
Yeah, I actually I felt what you were saying about taking a break from music, because I have been taking a break from music, but I wrote a song about a month and a half ago that I plan on recording soon, so I'm trying to, get back on it.
That's what's up. So, hey, Zero Lost and Found asked you, is NF speaking on mental health edifying for those with that struggle?
In the same way that it is like when Tom McDonald does it. So, and that's just strictly with the music. I don't know what happens at the concerts. I don't know what happens in the live streams, things like that. But when you're just listening to the music, you're just getting a Tom McDonald album.
Yeah. Well,
but it's faster.
I've said this before. I've said it before. This is nothing that people haven't heard from me in the past. I think NF is a believer. Where he is with his faith, I don't really know. I truly don't think he got into music to be a Christian rapper.
And maybe that's where I was naive, and I honestly thought that's why he got into music. And
But once
then,
again,
he's
and
standing
this
on
is a,
top of a mountain singing about Jesus with flame, and he's like, if this is as good as it gets, maybe this is not what I want. Maybe I don't know.
well, at the end of the day, that comes back on the rest of us as consumers and as a fan base of this, is that, a fault of ours, again, something that is not new, that we've talked about a million times, but the fault of ours is that we will grab on to
Anything.
pop
Oh my
any
God,
popular person that
anything.
mentions even that says even the slightest thing that sounds religious, right?
Yep.
And we've got to get over that.
The
We got to
reason
be
the NF thing
okay with the
repels
people
me
that
about
want to be here.
when I talk about mental health and the struggle and stuff is because I spent so much time doing that myself, and now that I've stepped away from that and I've looked at it, it's like, okay, I got that out of my system, and I'm glad, but it didn't really help me get through any of the struggles I was rapping about. What got me through was realizing I'm a man who don't got time to just be sitting around brooding, being sad and depressed. Like I got kids now. I can't be sitting around being sad and depressed, and that's not a good reflection of Christ. You ain't gonna read about Paul and Jesus and the apostles being sad and being worried about like you just got to do what you got to do. And to me, a better reflection of a man is, yeah, you got problems, but you are faithful. I think it's better to be faithful and persistent in what God is calling you to do. And at least for me, I don't feel like I was doing that well when I was in that space mentally. And I think that can lead to sin. I think that is in some ways a form of sin, to just be in this dark, broody mood all the time. So you got mental problems, go deal with them. Like there's biblical ways to deal with it. Just deal with it and then get up and go feed your kids. Baptize nations.
So I agree with Lost and Found. He said, it's another personal preference. Very true. He's been edified by NF. Dude, I mean, yeah, no doubt, myself as well. I just think that after Mansion, like I feel like it was pretty obvious.
Dave, okay, go ahead. Now we're gonna go to the last thing.
Well, it was pretty obvious where his beliefs were. Now, again, it was also a different situation, though. He was on Capital Christian at that point with Mansion, and then by the time you get to, what was that, Therapy Session, right? Was that the one that was? Yeah, I think Therapy Session was the one that was next.
When he got to the place where he could talk about whatever he wanted.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was no longer on Capital Christian; he was on just straight Capital. So, I mean, that there's different stuff happening,
but he's not with them
in those
anymore.
Situations.
That's what I'm saying. Once he got to a place where he could talk about whatever he wanted,
Capital.
I thought that he walked away from that.
No, he's still Capital.
Okay. I mean, I might, yeah.
So
he says that David wrote about being depressed, and David also wrote about coming out of that depression by leaning on God's strength. I mean, there are some really weird psalms where they're talking about break the teeth of my enemies, but he's talking to God. He is. I mean, it's the source of his coming out of that.
And you're right. It doesn't have to be scripture. There doesn't have to be scripture and to be uplifted. I think.
Yeah, there's beautiful things in life, but I'm talking from the specific context of the Christian.
But I think
with a mission.
whatever it is that we're talking about, or whatever it is that I say we like, I think whatever it is that artists talk about, every one of those topics is coming from some sort of basic foundation, right? It's a matter of where that is. And I'm not knocking NF, dude. I mean, I've got all of his albums. But he's an artist that I do have to be in a particular mood.
NF is both an artist
or a particular place. Like, I can't just continue to listen to NF.
He's both an inspiration and a cautionary tale. And I just want to be real about both of those things. Yes, he's got inspirational stuff, but it's also a cautionary tale to look at the trajectory of somebody's career and see like, wow, they really don't talk about Jesus anymore. I wonder why that is. Or I mean, maybe that.
I will say not on the latest one, not on the, was it Clouds, the mixtape, the one before it, the Search, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like he was having a lot more like conversations with God in it than he had previously on therapy session.
That's
But
fair.
that was,
That's fair.
but I mean, his life was different though too in all those. I mean, by the time you get to the search, if I'm not mistaken, he was married at that point, where he wasn't with therapy. I mean, we don't know what all he was going
Be back there when we're
through
done.
during that time of therapy session. He was obviously he was dealing with this crazy stardom
Yeah,
because once
that's a
Mansion came
big
out, I
weight on
mean,
a lot of people's minds, and it makes some people
yeah.
crazy.
Well, and I mean, it's just interesting. The audience that I know this is like way off of where we
No,
started
this
with
is this
everything, but
we hit stop. So let's tread these
yeah,
waters because it's not really
but
worth having a conversation about as a podcast in itself.
yeah, but being a high school teacher, I think it's really interesting the kind of kids that he was that that found a connection with NF, right? Like I would see kids walking around the hallways wearing NF hoodies.
Yeah,
Then I
he
was
was
like,
super famous.
"What? What? You're well, no." I'm like, "Really? You're listening to NF? I don't. I've heard your conversation. I've heard the things you say. Do you realize what all he actually believes?" Not, and I'm not trying to. I'm glad. I'm glad that it is because maybe they can get that message from him. But it's just, I don't know. I think he's in a spot that very few people coming from a Christian foundation have found themselves in, where
Because Christian
they
artists
have
spent so much time trying to portray this plastic, pristine, perfect image where nothing is ever wrong, and that sad and depressed is for poor people, and they don't buy our albums, or at least that's what they thought till NF came along.
yeah. So and his fan base is crazy dedicated to what he's doing. He talks about real music, right? I mean, they are bought in
Yeah,
on that real music movement.
and he's a good technical rap. Good, he's a great technical rapper, and people that are really into that, like, they're getting the treat that they signed up for.
Yeah. But if on the flip side of that, on the flip side of that, if you look at Toby, it's completely different. I don't know. I guess I'm not as familiar with the audience that Toby has, but it seems like Toby's not out here connecting with kids.
Toby's like friggin' old man now. When he accepts that, we're all ready to come alongside him and accept that with him.
But man, he's got some of the older heads that have bought into what he's doing though. So it's a completely different, and I think that goes along with the content you hear him making.
I would
Now I could throw a Toby song on at random and be okay with it. Like I said, NF, I gotta be in the right. I gotta be in the right place.
Tomlin, wasn't it Tomlin that came out with that song, and he had like Florida Georgia Line in it. It's called Thank You Lord, and it was really like generic. Like, let's just look. I don't have anything in common with these artists, but let's just all be honest about we can be thankful for something to God. And I was like, okay, that's a decent compromise, because like I don't know what those conversations were like, but a good song came out of it. It was a long ways away from what he was doing. I'm just glad he came out of that white flag phase, so I was willing to give him a chance. Toby, I don't hate Toby's music. I'm not super crazy about it either, but I think it is starting to grow with him.
Toby will say stuff that you're like, oh wait, what did he just say? But he's also not like, I don't know. I guess he's willing to talk about carrying a gun, right? He's willing to talk about his manhood and having relations with his wife, right? And honestly,
I don't really listen to Toby like that. I didn't know he was getting down like that.
Yeah.
Is he like trying to appeal to the conservative crowd? Is that what it is? Because he does keep with the trends, and it's starting to become more trendy to be conservative.
I don't know about that. I mean, I wouldn't
keep that in mind when you listen. I'm suspecting
so.
that. I don't know for sure.
I think
he
he's.
does
I
change
think
with the
he's.
trends. Like he's one of those
I think.
forerunners.
I don't know. I think he's. I think he's very tuned into where he's from, and the people he came out, or the people that he has gone through life with.
Hmm.
Uh,
Maybe
but
that
he's
came out of some
also
of them conversations with Florida Georgia Line and another
well,
country singer. He
but
was like, "Hey, it's okay to carry. It's a constitutional right." And you're like, yeah,
but uh
Jesus did
but
say by a
but
sword or whatever. I don't know.
but he's but I think he's also very tuned in into his spiritual life as well, and I think he's found a way to um blend those two worlds
I
to where it
just
makes
like I
because I don't think I've
wonder
heard.
and I worry about the artist's trajectory. Like you have your Nelly Furtados who start out with I'm a Christian singer with this generic crap. I'm like a bird or whatever, and then next thing you know, they're promiscuous girl, and just going right off the deep end. And then you have the ones that fade out and then nothing, and you never hear anything about them ever again. And then you have the ones that are like riding the line between secular and Christian enough that they can be accepted by both sides. And that's a very hard teeter-totter to pull off because when are you compromising and when are you losing an audience?
I think with Toby, I don't think he's worried about one thing or another. I think
He said, "I
Toby's
don't
just
think
like,
Toby is a conservative." No, I don't know for sure. I don't know anything about his politics, but I know if he's hanging out with the country music crowd and trying to tap
I
into
don't
that
think
a
he
little bit, then it's
I don't think
possible.
he's not doing that, is he?
And that would well, those subjects are the subjects that come up in conservative circles. When you're talking about carrying and being a man and hard work
Well, but
and
it's
your
also
wife
what,
and stuff, like those are conservative
but but
values,
but dudes on the street also talk about carrying their gun as
but not in
well.
a
I
conservative
mean,
value. Well, you have some overlap there because the black culture
and
is largely conservative
I
until it comes to
think
politics.
I think I think with Toby is he's just like, yo, this is me, take it or leave it. I'm completely comfortable with where I am in life, and
Yeah.
I'm not gonna change it one way or another. Lost and Found said his biggest issue is changing. Yeah, um, yeah, he did. I don't know. Lost and Found. I don't know if you know, man, because I have never not heard what happened with him and Nell, but I know that she hadn't been around for a minute, and it is different. I will say, that that what was this song that just came out recently? The one with the Two Chains. Can't remember the name. I thought it was a
Toby
good
did a song
song.
with 2 Chains.
Dude, he's done a
Toby
song with
doing
everybody,
whatever he
man.
want. He's what is he like? Yeah, he's at that point where like I'm surprised he's not in Vegas by now. Like Carmen was.
No,
He could do
come on,
whatever he want.
no,
He's famous enough that he could pull a Vegas crowd. You don't think so?
no, that's not where he's
Carmen died
at.
in Vegas because he was that big. And
No,
like artists get to a point to where the
no,
radio
but what?
stops
But
paying attention to them and they're like, I'm making money because
I
I'm a
think,
legend.
I, dude. Here's the thing. I think Toby is cementing his place in hip hop in general, though. Like, I think all the stuff he's been doing, like with the roots and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
like, dude. I mean, you don't just get to that place
Yeah.
because whenever you
You
get to
think he's
that place
trying to
where you're doing,
steer
I
more
mean,
back to authentic hip hop?
well, I mean, whenever you get to that place, you're not just
You gotta be a
playing
brave
to.
dude to get on a track
Well,
with Black King.
you're not um you're no longer just trying to catch someone with your single, right? Like you're plugged into the actual like real hip hop crowd, the hip hop heads, you know, not just people who hear your song on a
Like,
playlist or something. Like
okay,
that's
what song
cool.
are you talking about? Because I really don't follow Toby like that, but it's just like a Black Thoughts
Oh yeah. He's
and
worked with
Toby
them.
on the same track, or is he producing for him?
Yeah.
Like that don't even seem
No,
balanced. I
no.
know Toby's not that good
They're
of a rapper.
Dude, Toby's insane as a rapper. Come on. Dude, are you sure you're talking about the same Toby as me right now?
I don't know if
Are you
I've
talking
heard the
about
same songs that you've heard. Clearly, I
Toby and the
haven't.
Wig? Toby and the Wigway.
Only crap I ever hear is like Speak Life and whatever's on K Love, and they don't play rap
No,
like
dude,
that.
I don't think you're talking about the same. You're talking about Toby Mac.
Yeah, which Toby are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about Toby and the Wigway, dude.
That's why I'm so confused. I'm like, this is a weird conversation. Now it all makes okay. Toby and the Wigway has been showing up in my Facebook stream, and that okay.
Dude, okay. The Lost and Found says, I don't know what happened. Seems like a breakdown in the relationship, but the music isn't working anymore for me. It's trying to be Toby instead of just being yeah.
I'm super embarrassed right now, bro.
Yeah, I do think that's one thing. Like Toby, but he's not the only one that this applies to either. I mean, people have a similar, I guess, complaint about like Tech Nine, for example, where I think Toby has an equation. He has a pattern that he knows that works for him, and he sticks to it.
I gotta look this dude up because I think I've
Tech
seen
Nine has done that too.
I think I know who you're talking about. The video that I saw was he was like standing on top of a school bus and he had a choir in it, and they were using them PBS cameras with the slow zoom.
I don't know about
it. Might be a different rapper,
but I can send you.
How do I spell the Wigway?
NWIGWE, I believe.
Didn't Toby Mac like make the transition to more CCM music?
Yeah,
at some point.
That's why I was so confused about what he was saying.
Yeah,
I thought he was talking about Toby Mac.
That's the disconnect. Yeah.
So
I'm not sure when that cutoff was though.
Dude, I feel like Lost and Found is just like, we're in the staff chat though. I feel like should tell Lost and Found and just hop in like the Discord and talk with us. But we're in the staff chat. I forgot about that. So anyway, there was a bunch of random conversations.
This is not the same guy, but like, what is the deal with these PBS camera music videos, dude?
Dude, I don't know what you mean by that.
It's
PB.
What's the dude from Death Row?
Snoop?
Not Snoop, the relevant guy. The relevant guy. Why can't I think of anybody's name tonight? No, he's I can't think of anybody's name.
MC Hammer.
You're not even trying anymore.
Dude, he was on Death Row.
He's not. It was stop. I'm not talking to you about that. We just talked about him on another podcast. He did the Fake Christian album.
Fake Christian album?
He dropped the album. He's like the biggest rapper in the world. Why can I not remember this dude's name?
I mean, Snoop dropped the Christian album.
He's like the biggest rapper in the world. Like he drops an album and every Calvinist goes, "Oh, he dropped another album."
Kendrick Lamar.
Thank you. Kendrick Lamar. Wasn't he on Death Row? I thought he was on Death Row.
No.
Okay.
No.
He started this crap where you get these old like PBS 80s cameras with the slow zoom and there's like a whole bunch of stuff going on. Yeah, I seen this dude. Round here smell funny, onions getting peeled. And he's got he's got like a bunch of dudes like marching in a circle and trumpets and like I feel like Kendrick made this style of video popular, and it's just weird to me. It seems like something Kanye would probably do too. And now everybody's doing them. You just got these huge like choreographed, artsy. It's just weird, bro. And it's like it'll start like super close, like it'll be like all up on the dude's eye, and then it'll just zoom out, and it'll just be like 150 people on the field. Like with marching bands and stuff. Like, so he's a Christian rapper?
I would not. I doubt.
I'm pretty sure I heard some stuff that I don't want my kids to hear.
I would be shocked if he considers himself a Christian rapper. I think he is the epitome of a Christian who raps.
Really?
But the fact that people know that he believes in God, he's another guy that the Christian hip hop community grabs a hold of and won't let go.
You know what's going to happen?
No matter.
I already see it happening in a lot of different realms.
So
Kendrick is a
Lost
new
and
age rapper.
Found,
That's the best way of putting
Kendrick
it. Yes.
Kendrick is taking a lot
The
of people down a wrong
new
road.
age mysticism and syncretism with Christianity is probably one of the biggest contenders against
Well,
Christianity right now that we are going to face. We've been
if
facing
you
it for the
are
last 20 years, maybe longer.
if you're a Christian and you like hip hop and you don't understand why Kendrick might not be the best option for you to listen to solely based on the fact that his relationship with Eckhart Tolle, I don't know what to really tell you on that.
I do. It's
'Cause
syncretism. It's new age syncretism with Christianity. They're blending it together now. Like, these churches are goofy, bro. I heard somebody talking about the third eye in a church, and like they were not being ironic. They were serious. They bring in that new age stuff back like harder than it was in the 70s, and it's coming in through these rappers. It's coming in through a lot of people who are spiritual but not Christian. And the biggest the biggest divider that we're gonna see is, are you preaching the gospel? Because a lot of people don't even know what the gospel is.
The thing that's that's the thing that's screwing up a lot of people is there's a lot of these guys that are using those Christianese terms, and they sound like what you expect Christians to sound like, but the meaning and the purpose behind what they're saying has absolutely nothing to do.
And this is like what's in the back of my mind when I go against the compromise and or what I view as compromise, is because we've seen this syncretism all our lives, and usually it's been small, kind of weird, goofy people, but it's like so mainstream. Like, we're back to the 70s again. And
yeah,
go listen to Ray Comfort preach the gospel, Living Waters. Just watch a video, any video on the Living Waters where he sits down with a person. He might go through a presentation or something on some of them, but he'll sit down, and he has such a very simple way of presenting the gospel, and he's talking to these people lovingly, but he's hitting all the points, and you're like, oh, that's the gospel. And then you listen to any music and you're like, that's missing. It, like, the more you listen to somebody who's preaching the gospel, even when you're a Christian, I think we need to like remind ourselves, the more you hear the gospel repeated, the more you maybe that's why you should be out evangelizing to some degree and spreading the gospel yourself, because when you know what it is and when it's in your mind fresh, when you see this weird stuff, you're like, can't get with it. Like, it's not even bad sometimes, you know. It's just like not there. I would rather watch a Razor Fist video with all the swear words and stuff than watch a kind of Christianish anything when somebody's presenting themselves that way.
Yeah. So Lost and Found said the amount of believers who championed his, meaning Kendrick's, album was scary. Agreed. Gotta pay attention to theology. Yeah, man, we need to champion releases and artists like DJ Lost and Found, the way that we champion some of these mainstream guys.
I don't know if that's fair, because obviously you got hordes of demons behind Kendrick, which adds to the hype.
But when we're the ones doing it,
yeah,
when we, the body, are sitting there going, yeah, dude, I stayed up till midnight and listened to the whole thing 6 times, and it's amazing. It changed my life.
Well, we also,
dude, how? But then we won't take 30 seconds to put out a tweet for someone like Lost and Found or Ready Rider or Brinson. I mean,
and that's what I'm saying. Like, we all need to get together with these people that we respect and say, how can we, what's some ways that we can incorporate a very potent gospel message that we haven't done, that's not, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like we as a group, as a collection, as a genre, as a culture, have spent so much time trying to get away from the gospel and talk about other things. Even that song that I just released, I told you the gospel message isn't in it, it's in the song. And I'm sitting here like, okay, I need to do a song now that's just the gospel. How do I do that in a way that I'm going to be satisfied with when I release it. That my listeners are going to be like, yeah, that's a Zero song. Like, how do I do it? Like, that's the challenge. It has to, we have to redefine who we are by presenting the gospel clearly. And then we can keep doing some of this other stuff that we're doing. But like, I know, I'm not saying that these other guys aren't doing that, but I'm saying like this is a very straightforward conversation we need to have with all of these people. Like, let's get Lost and Found in here. Let's get Brinson in here. Let's have a powwow and come up with some ideas on how we can get on board with the gospel, and everybody just push it hard for the next couple of releases. Like, if every Christian artist in their next release pushed a hard gospel in their next song, and it was just the year of the gospel, that would like an earthquake.
I feel like a good example of a really good gospel centric song is Bizzle's song called "The Gospel." It's like
named.
it's yeah, but it's amazing. Like, it goes over the entirety of like the basics. Like, you know, it goes from Adam and Eve to the gospel. You know, and it's really, really good. I think that's a good example of that.
I tell you the guy that people should pay attention to and really look at how he does stuff, and that's K9, man. Like, that dude,
man, that Bible Stories track, I gotta get that for my
like
kids.
That dude says so. His words have so much substance and meat to them, but yet he does it in such in a simple way, not to where it's like, you know, ABC nursery rhyme raps, right? But it's laid out there so basic that anyone can understand it at the same time. He's got, you know, his different patterns and cadence and all this stuff, but he knows how to share a clear and coherent story.
Yeah.
With people, and he will talk about anything from scripture, right? He's got a song about Noah, you know, on that last album that he dropped. I don't know. I think we see stuff like
I'm gonna
like
get
that.
some K9 on the station during the kids hour for the Bible story.
I hadn't heard of K9. I got.
He's older. What was that album that he dropped? Was it like in early 2000s?
Wait, early 2000s?
Let me.
So yeah, see, Lost and Found is saying what I was saying earlier about becoming so good at what you do that it can't be denied, and that's more of his focus. Some of CHH will never acknowledge another. I'm assuming he means another person's maybe approach like that, no matter how good it is. Yeah.
Well,
and why is that?
I think because there's a lot of competition, and there's still a lot of pride in our group, man. There's a lot of pride in our group. We won't acknowledge people.
But shame on us, man. Like, dude, I'm sorry. Like,
I'm gonna go back to what I was saying. That's why it's good to take a step back and just. I'm gonna drop a gospel track, the gospel. Like, it's not I'm preaching the gospel, but like that's the focus. Get away from what I'm doing, and then you'll recognize these other people, like, because like Paul Baloche is a very wise worship leader, and I've listened to him on some other things too. DJ Lost and Found, I want you to be a part of this conversation that we're talking about right now, if you're available and willing to do it, because I know that you've got some stuff in your library that you could use as examples, and
well. So, like, for me, I'm like, dude, I know he might not be everyone's favorite, but I don't understand how whenever, like, Jay Monty drops a track, how people aren't talking about it for days like we do these mainstream guys. Like, Jay Monty is...
If he doesn't appeal to their flesh, then... That's a good indicator.
But you can't tell me.
You can't tell me good, like, but good.
But someone can't tell me that. Oh, I love Kendrick, and you don't like Monty. I'm sorry. So what's the difference?
I'm looking at something. I'm trying to look at this as different, like,
dude,
because these demons, like, bro, these demons know how to write songs.
Lost and Found,
These demons
if
know
Lost
how
and
to write
Found,
sounds better than people do. Like that's why you hear some of this stuff and it just gets under your skin for days, and you're like, wow.
yeah, dude,
I'm gonna mute
I
this
know
mic
we're
for
gonna.
like 30 seconds and pray with my daughter real quick so she can go to bed because she should
Okay,
not be awake.
yeah, yeah. So I know we're gonna be working on lining up a Twitter space with Lost and Found around his release coming up. But dude, like for real, if you've got a minute and you want to hop in here, let me know and I will go to the server and I will give you staff status so you can join us in the staff chat. So um yeah, man, Expander. What's on your mind? I know we gotta probably wrap this up before too long too. We've been on here for a while now, but um anything that you've just heard throughout this evening that you haven't got a chance to talk about that you'd like to?
Yeah, I've just been soaking it all in, really. As far as listening to, you know, Kendrick Lamar, I personally don't listen to secular hip hop. I the 99.9% of the time I stick to CHH music, and but the reason for that is because I really I personally really dislike hip hop with profanity in it, and hip hop that isn't by an artist who uh who loves God the same way I do. So, but that's just my view on that.
Yeah. Lost and Found, get that promo
To Lost and Found. I'm not talking about
game
like
on
right this
point.
second. I mean like when you do have some
Oh,
time.
dude, I invited him. I said, come on right now.
Well, he said he's
But
multitasking on
I
some
know,
stuff right now.
I know, but I didn't want to be rude and not invite him.
Yeah, I'm also
Otherwise,
I'm working on college homework right now, so I'm also multitasking.
if I don't invite Lost and Found, he may change his mind about doing a Twitter space soon. So gotta keep him
Don't be
happy,
a hater.
man.
Don't hate.
Still,
Congratulate.
he's got
He
Don't
do a
need
Twitter
to
space.
congratulate.
That's what he talking about. That's the problem right there.
We're in too many group chats together for me to make this man upset. Okay.
So I'll be honest. Like a lot of the music that I come across, I don't like for spiritual reasons or for theological reasons. Like there's a song that I like the sound of, and then I was like listening to it the other day, and it was just common sense music where it was like basically if you get an education, then you'll be okay because your slavery is a mindset. And
No, Pound, don't boycott.
see, I told you,
Or
man.
I mean, if you do, man, go hard with it and make people be like, "Yo, what's he talking about? Let me look into this." And maybe people who don't know about 520 finds out about 520.
But
I'm just like,
yeah,
can you work 520 into that promo that you're working on right now? Just
but when I'm
sorry,
listening to
I keep
music,
cutting up.
no, that's fine. But when I'm listening to stuff
I'm
and
gonna
I
keep on cutting
realize
you off.
it's more like common sense than something that's gonna help me grow from where I am. I'm not really about it. And maybe there's somebody on that level that needs some general common sense and stuff, but like there's a threshold there for me. Or when it's good, but it's just not spiritually edifying. Like I'm a person who's prone to depression. I got to stay away from dark and broody music that's just depressing for no reason. Like I get like the psalm style stuff where you're like you're in this dark kind of spiritual place and you need God to bring you out of it. But most of the music isn't that. It's not saying God get me out of this. It's just I'm sad and life sucks. Everything's bad and I have struggles.
Well, it's because it's okay to be sad, right?
It's not.
That's the message that we've been given: is it's okay if we're sad.
Because I've had people on the hard end that say it's a sin to be depressed, and I'm like being depressed and just choosing to stay depressed. Like, come on, man. Like that. Maybe it is a sin, and maybe that's what it is. It's like it's a sinful place to stay in, and when you get there, you should be like, I repent of this. God, get me out of this because this is not a place I want to be.
I think we like to make a lot of stuff into sin that's not actually sin. I think it's more of a, hey, this isn't the purpose. This isn't why I created you. This isn't the plan I have for you. So
Yeah.
so come on.
Well, I'm not talking about being
Yeah.
sad. I'm talking about being depressed.
Well, as
Well,
someone
but even that, I just don't see that as being sinful. I
as
think
someone
God
who
understands
personally
and
Go ahead.
sorry, go
yeah.
ahead.
Go ahead,
Oh,
Spanner.
I was just gonna say, as someone who personally struggles with bipolar depression, I get depressed for literally no reason,
Mm-hmm.
and so I feel like it's definitely not a sin in my opinion, just because of the fact that there's, you know, as far as the type of depression I have goes, it can happen for absolutely zero reason, and it can happen after, a high, and then it goes straight down to the lowest low, and it's like, yeah, if you want to add on to that, but I
Well,
really
I
do
just
Yeah,
think
because
feel
I
I
have
think
a.
that I
Go
think the
ahead.
thing we gotta remember is that while Jesus was on earth, he experienced those feelings and emotions that we experience. And
He
at the end of
was
the day, he was the one who knew no sin. So I
he was
think he
bleeding
felt
through
and
his skin. He
experienced
was
that.
so stressed out, and that's what I'm saying. Like he was praying
yeah.
through his sadness, which is part
Yeah,
of the
Oh yeah.
reason. Like, okay,
but
I'm not saying being sad
but
is
obviously,
being sad is not a sin. I'm not saying being sad is a sin. I'm saying choosing to stay in depression, especially when you're somebody like me and Expander who should be expecting it when it shows up. You got to have some safeguards in place. When it shows up and I stop answering my phone and I don't want to go nowhere and I don't want to do anything, it's like, bro, get up and take a walk, do something. Like call somebody, reach out for help, start praying out loud, read your Bible more because that's when you need God the most. And if you're not doing those things, then you're not repenting. So there's no other reason to repent unless you're in danger of falling into sin. So like that state of depression is caused by the sadness. And once you get to that state of depression, if you're just choosing to stay there, I will contend that you're choosing to be in a sinful place, especially when you realize it. Not everything
I
that we do that's sinful is stuff that we do that out of like stuff that we realize. Like when God brings it to your attention, like, hey, you're in a bad place, dude. You need to come on out of that. And you're like, I don't care. I don't want to do it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, and I get like,
I
go ahead.
sorry. Sorry to interrupt, but I would argue that sometimes, for me, it's not a matter of you choose to stay in depression. For me, it's if you pray through it and ask God, you know, for help and surround yourself with loving, caring people. I think that helps the depression, but I don't think that's a choice. I don't think making those choices automatically gets you out of that depression, at least in my
No, it
experience,
doesn't.
because I've
It doesn't automatically get you out. That's what I'm talking about.
yeah.
well,
Fighting to get
I
out.
don't know. I think that if you choose to sit there, that's not necessarily you choosing sin. Now, what could be the result of that choice, though? Like if that choice to remain in that situation leads to other things that can be sinful, then you got a problem, right?
I'm
Yeah.
basing all of
Um,
this on the
but
last bout that I had, where I was just like, I don't even care. I'm not doing nothing. I'm just gonna sit around and just feel this way. I'm mad. Blah blah blah. That's all sin. I'm sorry, it's sin. Like fight your way out of it. I'm not
Oh
saying
yeah.
being sad. You're gonna be sad. You're going to be sad. But you're gonna be sad fighting, or you're gonna be sad giving up.
I
That's a challenge
completely
to me
agree.
too.
Yeah. I would just say that it's you don't necessarily make the choice to be depressed or not. You make the choice to pray about it, surround yourself with loving and caring
Well, that's
people.
all sin though. You don't make the choice to be gay. You don't make the choice to be angry. You don't make the choice to be lazy. You make the choice not to repent. Am I
Well,
wrong?
so
we've had like three different things happen here tonight.
I'm
we've had a podcast.
I've been
We've talked about music.
I'm a little confused now.
Like, I think we've been on here a while. So now I'm
that
starting
that
to
that
wonder
that
if
that
people are
came out
gonna.
of the dark and broody music, but I'm just saying like as an artist, you're gonna experience things pretty deeply and at a greater range. And then we're like, how do I tie this back to God? And I know one
Yeah.
way of not doing it is just being like, I'm going through some issues. I'm so sad. Like, how do you tie this back to God? How do you bring people who are in these dark places who don't have the same faculties that you do? How do you bring them to God?
But maybe so when you talk, so I assume you're kind of talking about NF there, right?
I'm talking about
Um,
myself.
okay.
NF
Well,
too.
but
And all these other
I
broody
mean,
Christian rappers that want
but
to
there's
rap about mental health.
I mean,
but there's also something to be said about owning that at the same time.
yeah, because for me, whenever I feel depressed, I will listen to the hardest Mike Teasy song, or um, a really like upbeat, hype 1K Few song. Just as a couple of examples, but those hype songs really help me that have the gospel in it. Really help me to feel just better in general.
Yep.
I I only
Okay, you know
listen to
that
Joel.
song, Played the Fool?
I do not.
I
Who is
really
it by?
played the fool. It's got bats on it. And I'm pretty sure that's a
Oh,
Lost and Found track.
I need to listen to more Bat stuff. Honestly,
Um,
I've been meaning to do that.
is that a Lost and Found track?
I think so.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Foolish, right?
I can't remember who the first guy is. I know it's got bats on it.
Dude,
It's saying I played
so
the
like
fool. They were in a sinful
I'm so
place, and they're talking to God
I'm,
about how wrong they were, and they're gonna try to do better next time. That's an edifying song. You can use your sinfulness to create something good, and then the next time it comes around, it'll remind you, yeah, I already fell for that once. I'm not gonna keep falling for it. But
Yeah,
I'm
but
not ever going to. Yes, we own it, but we should not ever be making excuses for our sin. We should use them as a cautionary tale. Like, next time, I'm gonna try better. I might
I
fail.
do. One thing I would like to add is I do feel like depression definitely can lead to sin, and it has for me in the past. But I feel like being depressed, at least for me, with the type of depression I have, I feel like it's definitely not a sin. But if it's something that you don't work hard to try to get out of, you can definitely fall into sin, which is not what you want. You want
yeah.
to do your best to get out of that depressive state. Listen to hype music, surround yourself with loving, caring people, pray to God, all that
Yeah.
stuff. That goes, that works wonders.
And I also want to add, like,
Okay.
I don't think that you're gonna go to hell because you're sinning. Like, sin, the wages of sin is death, and that's why we put our faith and trust in Christ. But I'm not gonna act like I'm not sinning or I'm not in a sinful state or something like that. Like, I'm a man. As long as I'm alive, I'm prone to sin. And like, if I didn't have to fight to stay out of it, then it wouldn't be such a big deal.
So not to cut us off, but that's what I'm gonna do now because we've been here a long time.
Yep.
All
Yep.
right.
I
It
want
was
to
a
say
good talk.
I want to say thank you to everyone who came to listen to the podcast and then stuck around for our impromptu staff call. So, and we'll be back here soon. Uh, yeah, Zero can cut the stream. Let's go.
All right.